Team Ting, but now on actually Team Onside Gaming. It is going to be the red Protoss, Neeb.
And in the bottom left side of Inside and Out, we're looking at the main base of our Canadian Zerg player, representing the Shopify Rebellion. This is Scarlett.
I know you talked about Neeb also having some other things in life that he is now concerned about, and you are 100% correct. He did begin, I want to say it is university classes. I'm 99% sure about that, and not some job or anything like that. Because he actually had to miss something due to having to attend a class, first day of class, didn't want to miss. So yes, that is there, but I'm not sure how much coursework he actually brought on. I don't know if he's doing all the credits possible for a semester, for instance. Plus, even if that he's taking the most and he's actually just barely fitting in StarCraft, he is still at that point when you kind of start to pull away from StarCraft where I don't think your mechanics have really been hit all that much, and strategically you're still very much in. It's like you're far behind on the meta, so it's a little bit maybe of a clock running on when we see Neeb start to falter more than expected because he is practicing less. But I don't think we've hit it yet. Honestly, maybe for Atlanta, the main tournament, we might start to see it, but I'm not totally sure. I'd have to ask Neeb how much he's splitting his time.
Scarlett was forced to expand at the triangle base, and she actually took her gas pretty early. Now, I'm sure that Neeb has kept an eye on that as well. A lot of Zergs like to take the gas a bit earlier if they can't just take their natural, because they think getting Zergling speed early is important to keep these drones safe. But this is still something for Neeb to consider, that Scarlett is going to have access to link speed and potentially more gas just a few seconds quicker than Zergs normally do. It would scare me, Zombie Grub, but I'm a traumatized Protoss boy.
Yeah, Neeb doesn't scared of anything, all right? It's so perfect. Not quite, actually. I'm not quite Fear Dragon levels, but he's been playing some very, very good StarCraft, and that's the thing. I feel like even if he is at all, pulling back from StarCraft practice, he had hit one of his heights, I think, skill-wise, in the last couple of months. Not quite able to deliver a championship based off of it at Valencia, but I still think he's been playing super, super impressively. More perfect games from him, and I do mean actually sometimes even literally perfect games where he hasn't lost more than a single unit. So not against the likes of Scarlett, of course. Not against the likes of really, really top tier players. But yeah, some of his series, maybe earlier on in the Open Cups, are just, well, chef's kiss, as the kids say, right? This is an interesting opener because we had the gateways placed down before that Twilight Council. And I'm just double taking, because it is 2 gateways. I'm not crazy. It's 2 gateways plus the original one, 3 gateways total, then Twilight Council.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. So maybe Neeb did feel that there is a small chance something aggressive is coming, and this is going to give him access to those additional weapons a little bit quicker. This always brings me back to the days where Scarlett used to play on an account that was part of Adapted, as it was pretty obvious that he wasn't a very big fan of the Resonating Glaives meta. And hasn't completely fallen out, but obviously this day and age is a bit more about oracles into Blink than it is about Resonating Glaives. Yeah, maybe Neeb feels, let's just bring that back. We've seen Neeb do a couple of random adept attacks while still going oracles, but that is not the case this time around. Neeb is gonna go into Glaives, and we'll see how good Scarlett, her defense is going to be against it.
Right, and she is setting up for defense against possible ground units. All right, the 5 adepts are already here after all, but then beyond that, they're Resonating Glaives. So the adepts kind of just walk in to the naturals, means they can shade on out as well, or not, depending on what they actually see. They're gonna find a whole darn queen.
I would stay. Oh my goodness, how does he know? How does he know, Zombie Girl?
Perfect. Telling you. I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, for him, I guess we can actually say this guy plays so much StarCraft. There was a time where Neeb was playing almost like a full-time pro gamer on both NA and Europe as well, like an insane number of games. And that would often lead to burnout, understandably so. But yeah, he just plays a ton.
Scarlett has built 2 Spore Crawlers. Those are obviously not going to come in very handy against all these adepts. 8 roaches should be enough, but it's obviously important to still get the roaches in the right position. You cannot fight this initially, I think, as Scarlett, because this is a lot of adepts, and 4 queens are simply not going to survive very long. I already see a lot of potential here. Neeb does let the shade finish up, goes into the main base, There are more units here than there were in the third phase. I actually think maybe staying would have been better, but Neeb will still find damage and is obviously just going to try to make sure that this goes on and on. But Scarlett does have units catching the shade as well. I'd say overall pretty good defense, even though Scarlett is not completely done yet.
Yeah, she hasn't defended everything quite yet. The drones, unfortunately, maybe they should have been pulled over to the left side, reduce that number of 9 drones killed maybe to more like 5 or 6. But it's still overall, I mean, that could have been way nastier, and at least she can say that she's dealt with it now. But definitely got to get back to droning, and Neeb, well, he did macro quite well behind it. So he certainly is missing some of the more mid-game upgrades and units that you'd want to have, but since Scarlett's not just powering up on roaches, that's not really a concern right now.
+1 weapons on the way for Neeb and Blink. So it does seem that Neeb is indeed a little bit concerned about overwhelming amount of roaches showing up, and then we can just get 5 extra gateways warp in for days. Wouldn't mind an extra pylon or 2 at the third base of Neeb. Feels like there's a lot of very important stuff there. All powered by 2 pylons. If we lose those 2 pylons, we would be in very serious trouble, but Alex seems to be pretty fine with it so far.
Ooh, that's kind of cool. I don't see Neeb do this too often, I feel like. Hallucinated Warp Prism, going to cause a bit of panic for Scarlett. She pulls some units up to the main base. I mean, I guess a fake Warp Prism can also just fake out being chilled on the left side, as well as a real one.
Neeb is just powering up Immortals at this point. In general, I feel like sometimes I'm like, okay, if you just have Stalkers and a few Immortals, that can actually still be very hard against Roaches. Because I find it sometimes difficult to position my Immortals correctly. But players like Neeb, they just always seem to shoot at the right units with their Immortals. They hit quick as well, as if that real Warp Prism is now on the way. And Scarlett, her economy is not as great as I think you would love to see as a Zerg player. On top of that, she's investing in an infestation pit and a Hydra Den right now, but she's gonna have to take this army of Neeb very serious, because we know what Neeb is capable of with Blink Stalkers and a couple sentries.
As far as controlling the pace of the game, Neeb does seem to be winning out. Not that Scarlett's done and over with, but yeah, she's missing a couple of crucial features, like more drones primarily, and then also maybe a bit more army. It's kind of concerning to be up against an actual push from the Protoss player when you don't have all of the army possible, when you have a lot invested in things that aren't helping quite yet. And Neeb actually, his reinforcements kind of caught by the Roach, decides to kind of catch the Roaches instead. Now might lose some of those Sentinel on the backside if those Force Fields don't come down. Actually, this is the Warp Prism, as the Ravagers were prepared, and now the Immortal will go down as well, but blinking over to the right side too. And Scarlett, it felt like she was supposed to have the better sandwich, but Neeb just kind of took up some straight fights and did okay. Perhaps now overstaying his welcome against those Lings. The Lings don't have any upgrades. The Stalkers have their blink back, and that is actually a Neeb that can continue forward. He's ready to go, making another Warp Prism.
Yep, even without a Prism, Neeb still has a bit of money in the bank. He is making a second Prism, can warp in a big additional round of Stalkers, and Scarlett is just in a lot of trouble. Her minerals are going a little bit high as well. 1 Roach, 2 Ravagers at the moment. There are 8 Roaches on the way. And if Neeb does give Scarlett time to get all these units out, then obviously it's still fine. Scarlett was trying to kill the Observer there. If it wasn't for that Prism going down, this game would have already been over. There is absolutely no way that Scarlett would have been able to get enough units out. Now it does seem that Neeb is second-guessing himself a little bit, and he is going to disengage. And that really gives Scarlett a proper chance in this game, because Hive Tech is somewhat close to finishing up, and that Lurker Den is finishing up.
Taking the engagement when she did end up being a net positive, because that Warp Prism wasn't being paid attention to. It did almost turn around on her, but then it just opened up the opportunity for Neeb to not be, well, focusing on the Warp Prism, unsieging it and resieging it somewhere else. He was focused on the engagement and keeping the army alive. So yeah, maybe a bit of missed opportunity for Neeb, who is going to have to macro out of this, but against a Scarlett who was actually already, I mean, she was taking a step forward that we thought she shouldn't have. But it's actually fine. She's going to get the Vipers. She's going to get the Lurkers. And Neeb, he's going to try and go for the Disruptor play against it. But that is so extraordinarily difficult to actually do when you're just starting your Disruptor play, right?
Yep. If there are no Vipers, then it's totally fine. But once there are Vipers, it's not fine. Neeb has an Immortal, by the way, that's being rallied like a Warp Prism on the left side. Okay. Neeb is like, whoa, what is it doing over there? So it's going to recall it out. Yeah, I suddenly like this game for Scarlett, and I honestly thought that she was a forward blink away from being forced to tap out of this game, because with just a couple of links that didn't even have +1 melee, it really looked incredibly difficult for her. But yeah, Neeb wasn't quite sure what was waiting for him, didn't want to lose even more units than he already lost in that fight, and gave Scarlett some time to get the lurkers out. Will still show up here before most of the lurkers are in the correct position. But now Neeb knows that there are some Vipers out. One Viper, low on HP, but both of them live, and the Immortal gets abducted. I say Scarlett played that really well.
Yeah, she did. Saves the hatchery. Continues on improving her lurkers, no doubt, afterwards. So she has gotten the range upgrade. She's going to need the burrow upgrade. And it will actually really help out. Because right now, Neeb still, has that game plan of trying to outmaneuver the lurkers. But it does get more difficult as they burrow and unburrow very quickly. Scarlett really looking towards that late game as well. Up to 80 drones already. Adds on 14 more. Probably under the assumption that she will be able to get this expansion of the bottom right up as well. That's a little in question because there is a Warp Prism waiting. There just weren't very many good harassment units, right? The Zealots didn't have charge yet, and there are no DTs, not a Dark Shrine in sight. And he's actually been very much avoiding the Dark Shrine, by the way. It's something I've definitely picked up on him, but of course, as I say it, he gets it.
Of course, Zombie Gruff. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
Couple of spine crawlers are going to get cancelled here. Neeb is trying to get something done in the bottom right side while making this big attack on the left. The lurkers doing their best to get in range, and they are getting some good shots up right now. Neeb seems to underestimate the amount of lurkers there. I thought he was going to kill the hatchery a bit quicker. The High Templars do show up, and they land some big storms. They land a feedback or two. But that was a pretty pricey kill. But of course, it was 2 for the price of 1, as the Zealots went completely uncontested in the bottom right side.
Exactly. So Scarlett, she didn't actually keep that kind of 92 drone. I think she made some buildings or whatever. But still at 87, she's not really, fully mining. Ideally mining from every single base. And Inside and Out, as we do get to the later stages of some PvZ, is a map that is quickly condensed. You very quickly are going to be rubbing elbows with your opponent since there are so few bases on the map. So for Neeb, I mean, this is, even as we look fairly far into the future, this might even be about taking this base eventually himself if we get that far into the game. But Neeb is actually looking for a bit more of a direct engagement. The lurkers are kind of lined up, which it's like a depth of a siege tank line. So sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. In that case, they almost baited the stalkers into that blink forward, but Neeb still has the powerhouse units, the storms behind to kind of cover the retreat as he continues to warp in more units and warp in those stargates. So a transition is certainly planned.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy blink, but I guess it sort of worked out in the end. He saved most of his units. Scarlett does get a cancel on the Nexus at the right side, so that's obviously nice for her. And she's still up in supply, and that lurk account is honestly getting up to a point where I think we have to say goodbye to our ground dream for Neeb and just focus on carriers, focus on those Skytoss units, fly around with a prism, harass a little bit, that's good. But thinking of storming and blinking into this many lurkers is questionable. Not paying attention to all your High Templars in the center of the map could be questionable too, as there are 2 fights happening now at the same time. Neeb is fine on the right side, but I was a little late to react in the center.
Yeah, it's a good thing there wasn't more there from Scarlett, because that was certainly not being paid attention to. It would have been a goner. Neeb was focusing on the defense on the right side, as well as, I believe, getting the Warp Prism into place. As the Zealots saw their spine crawlers, they need more Zealots and better positioned. And they actually take down quite a few of those queens right from the get-go before Scarlett can start mass transfusing them. Even then, loses 1 more queen on the backside of that. Still has not taken care of the Warp Prism that drops into the natural. Will live to scout that Greater Spire and get into the main base as well. Not for the main base harassment, but just maybe to tuck itself into a corner. As we also had a scuffle to the top left, which has been won out by Scarlett just because there are so many lurkers. They finally reached a point of actual important contention. They are going after the Nexus.
Final queen actually went down in the natural as well. That means Scarlett is now down to 0 queens. That is definitely a bit problematic, as the carriers are going to reveal themselves, and the Hydra count is at 13, but most of these Hydras are not where they are supposed to be. And unless I'm crazy, I don't think they have the speed upgrade either. They look really slow there. No upgrades for the Hydras at all, and that means that Scarlett, after losing all those queens, basically has no anti-air at this point.
She doesn't even have the range. She has nothing on those Hydras. Not totally atypical, I guess, if it really is kind of like a dive towards lurkers, but I mean, there's been a bit of time where she could have gotten it, but now, obviously, most importantly, it's literally her only line of defense against carriers. So really quite sucky Hydras. She does have that Spire. That was, again, scouted by Neeb as a greater Spire, but first and foremost, got to get some Corruptors to handle the air. Neeb, was maybe a bit like in a dangerous situation when those lurkers were calling towards his top left base. But now if he does actually settle up the 5 bases, if he does take care of these 2 attacks, so that Neeb is in a wonderful position, but that is now the task. His right side's going to take a little while to clean up. Left side, yeah, that's not enough for the Protoss. This should be something Scarlett can take down.
But, well, we have a Dark Shrine. Don't forget about that.
Recall. And a recall.
Recall is a play as well, but a couple of Dark Templars would have absolutely kept that base safe. Neeb needs to make sure that he gets an observer to detect these lurkers, and he will, and it does feel that slowly but steady this game is just heading Neeb's way. Scarlett got some damage done there, but I just don't think it is necessarily enough. The corrupt count is getting pretty decent, but now the lurker count is incredibly low after Scarlett felt that she needed to do some offense to buy time for herself. I have the feeling that if Neeb just gets his units together and goes for it, he absolutely has more than enough to end it. Scarlett's going to try to abduct carriers one by one. This could be big, as one carrier does get abducted, but even the other corruptors are having a bit of issues, and that was a double abduct. Scarlett gets the base, but I think Neeb is willing to end it.
Yes, I think he knows the situation, especially, lurkers just run into a bunch of Archons, 2 of them instantly gone. And not that there's enough anyways. Like, the Archons will be able to tank quite a few lurker shots as long as they eventually get on top of the lurkers. I need to be careful not to lose the observer, of course. There's only 1, and not to be overwhelmed accidentally, kind of misreading the scenario. Neeb no doubt has the better, stronger army, but you can never quite be certain. Maybe the Zerg has got 15 lurkers in their back pocket. You underestimated the bank, but as it cleans up the left side base, I think it's becoming more and more obvious.
That is a lot of Archons, and that is very, very difficult for Scarlett to deal with. She does have the base in the bottom right side. Neeb is going to send 2 Zealots and a Dark Templar to fight a Roach. And I think the moment that Neeb sees there aren't too many units, he's going to test the waters, land a few more forward storms. Only 25 drones have gone down in the last minute or so. Neeb is playing it very safe. This is going to max out extra carriers. I don't see +2 air weapons yet. That's the one thing that upsets me. But Neeb has to know that if he can just roam on this side of the map with an army this big, this powerful, that he's in a mighty fine spot.
Yeah, I'm allowed to do whatever he wants. Clearing up this much creep spread that won't be replaced because we never remade those queens. Or they died again? I'm not sure which one, but they're still not on the field. Oh. Well, technically the army supplies are similar, but it would require really a lot of finesse here from Scarlett. She'd have to either find Neeb sleeping, or I do a very, very eventual, like, poking and prodding, or really abducting to victory, where she just takes massively good resource trades. It just seems so unlikely.
What a baller High Templar. Got out of range of the spikes, got back in range, landed another storm. That's the only spellcaster for Scarlett. That one goes down, and obviously at that point Scarlett knows that there is nothing that she can do anymore about this terrifying Protoss army. Neeb looking very good in this first game, even if there were moments to perhaps close it out a bit earlier. He didn't lose that War Prison, that could have been the end of it. The Adepts were alright, but there was maybe even more potential for them. But overall, Neeb is just looking as good as he's done throughout this entire season.
I would have been concerned for a lot of the Protosses after he backed away, and we were still understandably concerned a little bit, but I would have been really concerned if it wasn't for Neeb. But Neeb has shown specifically in this matchup, in that type of scenario, that it's not like as bad as it seems, because he was doing everything quickly behind it. You know, he was getting the macro up and running. He was still presenting a force on the map, so the Zerg didn't just feel like they were super empowered. It was still scary to go up against them, even after you theoretically held one of the most important pushes. So it ended up working out really well for Neeb. There was definitely some moments of scariness for the guy, but always seemed to keep it calm and collected.
Tropical Sacrifice is going to be our second battleground. I am not even sure what I would like to see from Scarlett. That's kind of the terrifying thing about going up against Neeb. Neeb is so good in the normal games. He's very good against Cheese. He's very good in the late game. We know that that man loves his shield batteries, and you're not going to see Neeb sleeping, where it's like, okay, this would be a good moment to have a couple extra batteries. We have seen plenty of games between these two where Neeb ends up with 50 plus shield batteries in the center of the map, like World War I style, just going forward, like line after line. I don't even know. I think maybe a bit of that good old Roachling Ravager, and then surprise Mudas, perhaps, just that kind of stuff. Neeb is in a rock in this matchup. He really is.
Indeed, indeed. On the top right of Tropical Sacrifice, now with a 1-0 lead, we have Onside Gaming's Neeb.
And in the bottom left side of Tropical Sacrifice, we're looking at the main base of our Canadian Zerg player, down 0-1. What we'll see come up with here in Game 2. Representing the Shopify Rebellion, this is Scarlett.
And not only is Neeb so good in this matchup, but I do feel like Scarlett, all things combined, is showing a weaker Protoss. I'm definitely not going to say like her weakest CVP yet or anything extreme like that. It's just, it's not the matchup that I even came into the group stage, being very confident for her in, and not just because she lost against Patty Mac. I'm not going to focus in on that like it was a miracle. No, it was that Scarlett, obviously she lost to Estrella as well, but that's also not too surprising, is that she also struggled against Nina. So that's 2 losses against Protosses of varying strengths, and then a third win, but very, very tough win against a Protoss, again, that we wouldn't usually expect to I guess, really threaten her in such a way. It's possible, yes, but just not expected. So again, all things combined, plus she's actually doing this tournament from Korea. It's not exactly an ideal time or ideal ping. Yeah, it just doesn't set her up particularly well going into the series. But Neeb just has everything going well for him. The history, the results, the situation, ping-wise, time-wise. Neeb's just at his peak.
Right now, all the excitement is gone. Zombie grew up.
Yeah, it's over, guys. I don't know why we hyped this one up.
I wasn't even really thinking about the time for some reason. I just kind of assumed it was going to be all right. I was like, pro gamers. And Scarlett is obviously no stranger to staying up late. But this is indeed a god-awful time just to play from Korea. I think it's 5 a.m., 6 a.m., something along those lines. Not pleasant at all. Yeah, I don't know. See, once more took an early guess. I was like, is it gonna happen? But no, it just seems like that's something that Scarlett likes to do if she's forced to expand, not at her natural, but at her triangle base instead. Curious to see what Neeb will come up with. I feel like this map is big enough to just go for some oracles and just do Neeb things, right? Double oracle, triple oracle into blink stalkers and have a good old time.
Yep, that's exactly what he's gonna do. And I think the reason to be still very excited about this is not just the two's history, but in that history, we have seen Scarlett pop off. I mean, you said it at the desk. It's hard to actually go in doubting Scarlett in a series because it also really depends on the day. Sometimes she actually looks like one of the world's best at certain matchups on a given day, even when just the last 2 weeks she hasn't looked particularly strong. Suddenly she'll just boom, pop off, be great at CVP. So there's always that chance, and there still is that chance. I still thought she was playing at a pretty good speed last game, and like I said, there were definitely moments where Neeb had to be concerned, but when you consider, I guess, kind of the scary situations she had found herself in earlier, that lack of droning, right, and the actual losses to the Adepts on as much as it could have been, but still, yeah, even with her very fast gameplay, it wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, the way that Scarlett split up her army a few times was indeed actually very impressive and was able to win a few fights here and there. And I think a lesser Protoss would have absolutely fallen apart at a certain point, not have detection when they needed the most, or overcommit a bit, but Neeb is incredibly solid in the matchup and wasn't really at any point where we were like, oh, Neeb is in serious trouble. It just could have been very hard, but then it didn't turn out to be incredibly hard for Neeb. Also makes the transition into carriers always look so effortless, which I feel like a lot of what is it?
Does Scarlett think it's the depths because she hasn't seen Oracle yet?
There is a good chance, but
sorry, I interrupted your thought process.
No, I mean, I was just basically complimenting Neeb. We do have a Spore Crawler going down, second Spore Crawler going down. It is indeed a little bit late, because normally they would pretty much be finished up at this point against the Oracles. But if the Queens are in a correct position, it's going to be all right. We do know that Scarlett really does not want to find herself losing a few drones here. Neeb activates Pulsar Beam, and we'll see that the Spore Crawler is not done yet. And that's all that Neeb needs to see to grab 5 drones and get out of there for now with both Oracles. Going to try to get lucky in the main base. Splits off the low HP Oracle. It is all absolutely perfect what Alex Sunderhoft is doing over here.
Yeah, and that is 100% what happened, actually. Neeb kept the Oracle in the main base, so it didn't even reveal itself crossing the map or over the third base. So, if you can't get a literal scout on what they're doing... Okay, this is actually kind of a little bit of little bit of chaos, a little bit of tit for tat. If the sentry goes down, especially, but only gets the adept. But yeah, you know, if you don't get any other direct scout on that Stargate, or maybe even the warp gate timing, which I wasn't paying attention to. Sorry, guys, but even that, you know, can be a tell. Maybe he faked that out too. Scarlett is going to basically say, well, if I don't see the first oracle, then I guess it's not an oracle. Again, especially if that warp gate was put first and foremost rather than delayed. So that was a really neat trick, playing on the previous game for an entire best of 5, and Scarlett, I do believe, fell for it. I mostly noticed it when she made 16 Lings and a Roach Warren, and I was like, is the Stargate open there? And then I noticed what Neeb was doing.
Neeb actually could have grabbed a few more drones there, dropped the Revelations, saw Spore Crawler and a Queen, and then thought maybe the main base is going to be easier. But the main base was actually defended by 3 Queens. Scarlett, despite everything that happened so far, is still just going to drop a very early Hydra Den and an Infestation Pit with +1 melee on the way. But Neeb is making even more gateways than I feel like he had in the previous game. I guess we don't, yeah, no. This is a lot of gates. And I have the feeling that if Neeb does not slip up like he did with the Prism, the next push could already be devastating. But then again, we don't even have a Robo yet this time around, so maybe Neeb is not going to be all that aggressive, and Scarlett will be able to get away with all her tech.
Right, it's kind of hard to call, because I think Neeb has enough gateways being produced that there could certainly be a presence on the field. But with the 4th Nexus and no Warp Prism, it's, you know, there's only ever going to be so much aggression coming out from the Protoss. And kind of that halfway is not going to work out. That's actually the best maybe case scenario for Scarlett, who is not going to be punished for this tech greed. And Neeb, well, he's going to have some good macro, no doubt about that. But maybe I spoke too soon. We do have some Archons forming. Upgrades are finishing all at once. It is just that lack of instant reinforcements that makes me doubt this will end the game.
Yep, but Neeb is going to be able to wipe in a lot of units at home, and this is a difficult army for Scarlett to engage, because the Archons just make it almost impossible for the Lynx to really get too adventurous here. Neeb has a hallucinated Phoenix Scout in the main base. These are the little things that will absolutely give Neeb the idea that maybe I should indeed be a bit more aggressive in the near future, and I should definitely not let Scarlett get away with a potential 5th base that somehow went unscouted, which I'm really surprised by. The base at 6 o'clock is not a base that Neeb is aware of.
That could be a little bit awkward as far as where he's thinking of directing aggression when it kind of really gets ramped up, or even just directing harassment too, right? If he goes to the middle of the map as opposed to the very easy, totally 6 o'clock position. As we're getting to that stage, I mean, Neeb, he doesn't have that complete army that can just tear down the Zerg at this point, because he also went for that 4th base and all the gases, and has a ton of upgrades now on the way, very expensive gas upgrades. But we'll still nonetheless have a powerful army at a point before Scarlett, I think, is really perfected on her lurkers. Kind of akin to last game, actually, which is Scarlett is getting to lurkers. That is terrifying for a ground-based Protoss, but Neeb handled it quite well last game.
Yeah. One thing I was very surprised by is that Neeb didn't get Observer speed last game, because we didn't even talk about it too much, but we had the Robo Bay and the 2nd Robo, but Neeb never really made any Disruptors or Colossus. As soon as he saw all the lurkers, he's like, all right, I'm going to go for Storm. I believe Storm is going to be better here. And that Robo Bay actually never really came into play.
That's a good point. Same with the Dark Shrine, I believe. I don't think we ever saw a Dark Templar warp in.
Yeah, one in the bottom right with 2 Zealots, but not too many. It's almost like he forgot the fact that he had a Dark Shrine when he recalled to the top left, because there was no Overseer there.
I'm telling you, it's because he usually doesn't make one, I swear.
I believe you, Zombie.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, we still have the situation here at the very least where there's none on the way. And on 4 base, super saturated, 84 probes. I mean, it could definitely be afforded. So I feel a little validated.
There it comes. Dark Shrine. No, I'm joking. It's going to be a fleet beacon and extra Stargates for Neeb. So Neeb is once more setting himself up for that transition into carriers. But this is where things could get pretty scary for Scarlett. There is that War Prism chilling between the bases. Neeb's army is very well upgraded. Doesn't actually have too many battle units. Now, one thing I'm really surprised by is how low Scarlett keeps her queen count. Even in this entire game, she never went above 6 queens, which is way less than some of these European Zergs. And as soon as he loses a few, he doesn't really rebuild them.
That's a good point. It sounds kind of odd because we always highlight her creep, obviously, but yeah, it's not, I guess, as impactful in this matchup, but no, still a bit odd. But We do have certainly a lot of engagements going on here. We had that kind of weird one onto Scarlett's third base, but now she's under attack on both her fourth and her fifth, and this is where Neeb is finding a little bit of more of that room, but even still, the Lurkers with their upgrade are going to push that back. And Neeb lost the fifth, also going to be under attack at the fourth base. Have yes warp in, but a little bit of a miscue on the Lings probably means it's okay.
Yep, and these Lings are not going to make it into the natural. Scarlett did have a little Lurker drop, and one of the Lurkers was positioned on the high ground in the main base. That killed a lot of probes. That was cool. But she's struggling a bit more with these Zealots, and I think all the Scarlett fans would have loved to see. Does keep her important base safe at the bottom side, and is still at 89 drones. All of that is very promising. But at this point, Scarlett needs a Spire again, or we need very well upgraded Hydras and Vipers, because the carriers are on the way, and I feel like this is something Scarlett is kind of aware of, because her Dropper-Lord is chilling right next to a fleet beacon. So that's a pretty big tell, I'd say. She didn't actually see the extra Stargates, but yeah, we need to do more with the Lurkers before all the carriers come up.
Maybe she didn't really see it until she moved the Overlord, or had it moved for her, I suppose. And then, even then, might be hoping, guessing, that the carriers aren't being produced yet. And it can be kind of hard to tell, I suppose, when there's a lot of action everywhere, exactly how much supply could be left for those carriers, which, you're right, they're definitely a big issue. So at least she's upgrading the Hydras at this point.
Neeb actually just very casually had 6 High Templars traveling to the center of the map all by itself, and now Scarlett's coming in from each and every single angle with Lurkers. That is very cool. The problem is that she is running into storms, and now Neeb is flanking the Lurkers at the bottom side. Carriers are going to clean this up. The Lurker shots were really good. A lot of High Templars went down, but these carriers will go uncontested.
I thought that was a disaster for Neeb. We saw the humongous surround coming in from Scarlett. Looked like a slam dunk scenario, but I mean, one, Neeb was able to use almost all the High Templar storms before they died, or at least a decent number of them. And then two, there was even a little bit of a surround coming in from Neeb, which really did screw up the, I guess, intended finisher for that battle for Scarlett. So now Neeb back in control, back with all the units combined as well. There was definitely a lot of risky play from Neeb here with how he was controlling 2 or 3 different sets of units. Now a bit more combined, can focus in on what he needs to do, which is basically cover the Hydras of Storm. That's number one goal right now.
And I think what Neeb saw there as well is like, hey, a couple slow Hydras. That probably means that I'm doing pretty good. Neeb has sent a couple of Zealots into the base at 9 o'clock. They will take care of, I believe, the only Queen now. We have a few more Queens right now. Start on the map. Scarlett is going to try to go double Spire. One Spire did finish up. So, yeah, we could make a couple of Corruptors. But the problem is for Scarlett that her gas bank is simply not very big at the moment. If you make a lot of Corruptors and Hydras, you need a crazy amount of gas. And Neeb is doing a very good job in making sure that that gas bank is not growing anytime soon.
I feel like there was maybe an opportunity for Neeb to just kind of full send it if there are some more charge lots more immediately, as the Lurkers were not done and some of the stack defense was also not quite ready. But Scarlett moves out of position for literally half a second, and that's when Neeb pounces. Now taking care of some of that Sim City. Again, the Lurkers just completely removed, and it is down to the Hydras versus Interceptors, but also Storms, and that's pretty critical.
Yep, there aren't even too many Interceptors left, but there are plenty of Archon Stalkers and a few more Storms to work with. I'm afraid that Scarlett is not going to get the time to get all these extra Hydras out, to get the Corruptors out. Neeb takes the 2-0 lead here in the semifinals of the upper bracket, DreamHack Masters NA Atlanta. And Neeb is just looking really, really good.
He is. I'm still a little bewildered by maybe the late response to the Stargates, but I guess Scarlett really was thinking that it was a game that was kind of headed one direction when it actually wasn't, maybe underestimating how good Neeb's economy was, or transition timing was. But it was kind of a hard game to really call, I think, from the Zerg's perspective, looking back on it and putting myself in her shoes a little bit, because the Protoss Neeb really did have very small groups of units kind of all around. Like those High Templars were caught in the middle trailing for a reason. It's because there was like a group of High Templars there and a group of High Templars there. So it wasn't one big blob where maybe you could kind of figure out their intentions as well as their composition. It was really all over the place.
Our next game is going to be played on Data C. I wonder what Scarlett is going to bring to the table here. Neeb, I do really love his PvZ, and it's the little things. It's like, yeah, oracles are predictable, but then he doesn't show them. He doesn't build this target perhaps where he even normally builds it, and Scarlett definitely did misread the opening a bit. And then there is an opening, but Neeb also just played it out so well. He sees where the queens are, goes for the natural, sees Sport Crawler 80% done. That's enough time for these oracles to get in range, get a bunch of drones, then flies into the main base, sees that Sport Crawler isn't done yet either. Neeb makes all of the difficult things look very easy and just gets himself off to such a good start, killing 10, 11 drones. I think at that point, Scarlett has to play a very risky game. She has to cut a couple of corners to even make it a game, and she absolutely did succeed in doing that, but you can't really fall behind against Neeb in this matchup because it's very, very hard to turn things around.
Well, it is the potentially last game of the series yet again here. We got the bottom left spawn going to the red Protoss, Neeb.
In the top right side of Data C, we're looking at the main base of our Canadian Zerg playing these games from Korea. It is ultra early there. It's not even late anymore. Kenzie turn things around, representing the Shopify Rebellion. This is Scarlett.
Certain Neeb has other kind of smaller tricks up his sleeve. Now there's like the big tricks, like not getting gas, then going into a charge all in, which I really don't think Neeb will ever do. But then there's kind of smaller ones, yeah, like warp gate timing, signifying a certain thing, and then delaying your oracles. That was seemingly a tiny thing that had big impact. And as you said, put Scarlett in a position where she knew she needed to do something kind of high risk, high reward. Maybe it was just entirely put off from an initial plan because of it. Maybe her plan was to just like grow to a good economy right off the bat and then charge with Baneling, Roach Ravager. Well, that had to be kind of changed when she felt that she was already set back so much. But I can't say for certain that was the case. If Scarlett is planning on going into a similar style of play, so really fast into those lurkers, something's got to change in how much damage she's capable of doing. Because it doesn't look like Neeb is necessarily ever on the back foot. Even as his 5th base got killed, it's kind of reminded that 4th base was super fast and super quickly saturated as well, so it wasn't a big loss for the Protoss.
I did absolutely love the ending of the game as well, where you said, I think maybe Neeb can send it, and then Neeb is pretending that he's going to swing around back to the top, and he's going to run up that ramp, then Scarlett moves her lurkers and Hydras out of position, and Neeb's like, just kidding, turns around again, +2 air weapons, finishes up, lurkers out of position, Hydras forced to run into storms. It's the little things, but really great army movement there towards the end of the game by Neeb.
Yeah, that too. Neeb just so good in all stages of this matchup, and so all stages of defending as well. It just feels like with the way that Neeb is able to play out these 2 games, it's not even like, obviously it's defending at some points. He is the one defending things on his side of the map. It just doesn't feel like I've really had Neeb just be the defender, even as he literally went to 4 bases super quickly, so it would usually be considered defensive. Well, Scarlett was going for her own super greedy tech stuff. So otherwise, it's just Neeb always with a presence on the map that seems more intimidating, or at least higher potential than what Scarlett has whenever she actually gets on the map and tries to do something over on Neeb's side.
Yeah. Obviously, the power of the oracles that give Protoss players a lot of sense of security, where they feel Lings do not scare them, and Roaches are too much of a commitment early on, that even if a Zerg would build a lot of Roaches to deny 4th base, that's still going to be fine, because then Neeb will just wait until Blink is done, +1 is done, and then the Stalkers are going to get some good trades, as 2 Adepts have made it into the natural, but good target fire there by Scarlett. Neeb actually not going for that 1 drone, does go for that 1 drone in the end, wants to get 1 more shot off, but that one gets denied. I think on the NA server, we know that Scarlett would have saved that drone. I think playing from Korea, it's a bit harder to do those kind of things.
Very true, and one of the more prominent, I guess, examples of how that ping can impact her. So for Neeb, too, I guess, to stop fawning over him for 1 second, that was probably some of the worst control of the Adepts that we've seen from Neeb. Not that it was super terror bad, it just, like, Neeb can actually do wonders with 2 Adepts, so that was actually Scarlett maybe even breathing a sigh of relief, like, oh, okay, that was maybe easier or shorter lasting than normal. Still has to worry about the oracles that are coming out in their control as well, and of course, the rest of the game, because she is down 0-2. Not exactly on her last life for the playoffs, though. This is the upper bracket.
There are no sport. There's only 1 sport.
Oh.
That's pretty crazy. One Sport
Well,
Crawler against double Oracle, but the queens are in the correct position, and it works out for Scarlett. One Spore against 2 Oracles, and Scarlett actually only loses 2 drones, kills an Oracle. This is by far and away the best start that Scarlett has had in this entire best of 5.
Yeah, kind of just throw in the Adept criticism, like, that might be the only thing, though, and then boom, loses an Oracle when the Zerg was 100%. A bit under-defended, it just got kind of greedy in the wrong location, basically, and Scarlett with a good pull on the 2 main queens as well, very perfectly timed. So it might be a little more reserved and kind of that fanciness that the Oracle control, the Adept control, but it doesn't mean that the bones are being shaken here, right? Like, Neeb still has 3 bases set up and still has the rest of the game to play, presumably into a bit of that mid to late game, because Scarlett has not been doing very aggressive things, but we'll see if it changes.
I think it's going to change. I think we're going to fly some queens to the other side of the map, even though Scarlett has not been building too many queens, but Overlord speed, 11 roaches on the way. I have the feeling that Scarlett is going to do something a bit aggressive. Couple of links fired up now as well, and there are the Dropper Lords. We'll call it the Soul Subway, since the German taxi does not exist over there, but I like it. Well, it's not necessary this game, because Scarlett has had such a good start. But yeah, why not switch it up a little bit? Why not try to be the aggressive for once?
I like it. I think Neeb will very much be caught off guard with this. Still hasn't really put 2 and 2 together. Now sees Ravagers, just kind of weird to see if she's not going to attack, because I don't think it's really a big enough Stalker Ball to force the Zerg to be very, very defensive. So are we getting shield batteries back at home? We are, but they're still coming in pretty late, right underneath the queens as they drop off. The Overlord spread the creep as well, and Neeb is in a lot of trouble.
Okay, Neeb used a very early overcharge there, by the way. He's going to keep a couple of these Stalkers safe, but the other Stalkers in the top side of the map, they do get caught by the majority of the forces that are coming in. Obviously, with all this creep, these queens can transfuse for days. That battery overcharge has now officially ran out. The Stalker count is kind of getting up there. We're looking at 10 Stalkers at the moment, with a couple of cannons finishing up. Can Neeb hold with extra gateways finishing up?
With extra gateways? I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised that these Stalkers last as long as they did. Once the Lings, I guess, are finally taken care of, the Stalkers had a little bit more to say. More Lings do come in, but also more Stalkers. Shield batteries are still alive, even though they're out of juice. So that just means every couple of seconds, a very crucial energy rebuilt, a very crucial shield battery rebuilt.
Okay. Scarlett takes out a very important pylon there. I'm very happy to see that Scarlett took out that pylon, because those 3 extra gates being up a bit longer could have been very problematic. The queens are falling very low on HP, and most of them have gone down. But now Neeb is going to have such a hard time getting warp-ins. Those are slow warp-ins as well. GG gets called, and Scarlett, with a bit of the Soul Subway, gets a point on the board.
Yeah, I wanted to get hyped about the seeming, it looked like for a second that there is just going to be a bit more of an elongated battle, I suppose, with the shield battery still technically alive and the Stalker count starting to grow. But then it just, look at the supply, look at the reinforcements coming in from Scarlett. I was like, oh, okay, that's nothing actually that can bring this back. Very close for such a last second decision to try and defend, realization that you're going to have to defend, but still far too late to actually make magic happen.
Yep. Maybe 1 extra gateway, and instead of 1 gateway powering those 3 gates, if you, or excuse me, 1 extra pylon, you have 2 pylons there powering those 3 gates. It's a bit harder for Scarlett to unpower those gateways. Maybe Neeb buys a bit of extra time, gets a few more warp-ins, because it's really funny how these battles go, where it's like the Zerg's doing it, and then at one point you suddenly reach that correct amount of Stalkers, you can start blinking them back one by one, and then it feels that the Zerg is just incapable of killing a single unit. But fortunately for Scarlett, we never got there. Good to see her at least get 1 on the board, and now maybe Neeb is going to be a bit more paranoid as well, where he's like, all right, I'm definitely going to have to clean it up, because this was the first time that Neeb's early game actually didn't look great. Like, I was with you with the Adepts, that could have been better, but it's like, it's just the Adepts. But then an Oracle going down as well, while only killing a single drone, while Scarlett actually cut some corners. I mean, maybe we have a series on our hands here, Zombie Grub.
I do believe that started a ripple effect that I'll talk about after the intros. Top left of now, Cosmic Sapphire. He is Onside Gaming's Neeb.
And in the bottom right side, representing the Shopify Rebellion, getting a W on Data C. Can we get a W on that other big map as well? Cosmic Sapphire this time around. This is Scarlett.
Yeah, the ripple effect. I mean, it wasn't just the loss of the Oracle that had the ripple, but it definitely helped that Neeb had to wanted to replace the Oracle anyway, so we went back up to 3 Oracles. So that's technically a full delay on a Twilight Council when you get one more of those gals. Even then, I don't think Twilight Council would have been fast enough to actually have Blink in action, but just noting it. So also, beyond that, kind of having his own expectations for the game, wanted to still do some little poking and prodding, kept on using the Oracle energy. Sorry guys, my cat's moving my mic. Using the Oracle energy to Revelation, right? He was cleaning up all those creep tumors and trying to figure out kind of what was happening as far as the front lines went, which meant the energy on the Oracles was really low. So when they got recalled back, they were effectively useless, even though they could have maybe paired up with that overcharge and done some pretty severe damage, but they did not. And then also the retreat that happened, because again, he had those units on her side of the map. It caused the loss of, I want to say 3, maybe 4 stalkers that just had no chance. They're running back home into a flood of Zerglings. You add all of that together in a positive sense, 4 more stalkers, energy on 3 Oracles with an overcharged battery and everything else that happened. And yeah, maybe Neeb does hold.
That was actually the first game as well that Scarlett was just able to take her own natural. And that's just, I always think it's such a nice thing for Zergs. Whenever you build those drones from the main, they start mining in the natural immediately. Neeb is like, all right, we're not going to let that happen again. So Scarlett is back to being forced to taking the triangle base. And this time around, actually waited a bit by taking her extractor as well. On inside and outs, he took it very quickly. But maybe that's because it's such a small map. And we're here on Cosmic Sapphire, Scarlett will think, all right, even if my drones are going to be a bit more exposed, it's going to take longer for Neeb, his Adepts and Oracles to show up to.
It wouldn't be the first time in a best of 5, I think. Maybe it was a best of 7 some other times, where the Protoss getting the delay on the natural or forcing the natural to take it at the 3rd was kind of like the... Not actually a deciding point, obviously, but just one of those things that looked like it was a determining factor on whether or not the Zerg had a nice game. And I can't exactly remember what other series I'm thinking about, but I remember being like, look, guys, the Protoss has always interrupted the Zerg, and now the Zerg finally gets their hatchery down. Okay. Could this be a turnaround? And it was. So
this could be big. This could be big. These Adepts are gonna sync up at the 3rd base, and Scarlett does not have too many units here. This time around, Neeb should find a bit more success with these 2 Adepts, and the delay on the natural has been big. Scarlett sends her drones back, like the Adepts are gone, but Zombie Grub, those Adepts ain't gone yet. 3 drones have gone down, a couple of links have gone down, both the Adepts live. Welcome back, Neeb.
Exactly. It's actually happening again. Scarlett gets that natural, forced onto the 3rd base, and then everything else also goes swimmingly for the Protoss. Does lose the 1 weakened Adept, didn't have much time to regen those shields, so that was almost salvageable, but not quite. But it still is just, it's the perfection, almost perfection of the early game, leading into what probably is going to be a more effective Oracle and double Oracle team.
Yep. +1 melee is going to be the attack of choice for Scarlett for now, but Neeb also did such a great job in delaying that natural from going down, not just initially, but then with the pylon, another pylon, then the Adept forced the drone away, and by the time Scarlett thought, all right, now I can take care of that Adept, all the Adepts show up at the 3rd. This was actually super beautiful early game by Neeb, and something that I look at, I'm like, this all makes so much sense as these Oracles are going to go to town on the drones. Not too bad for Scarlett this time around, only 2 works going down, but I can practice an early game like this 100 times, and it will never work out as perfectly as I feel like it went for Neeb this time around.
Agreed. It's just tough to be up to Neeb's skill level and his potential too. It's just, it seems unlimited. Every time I think this guy might just be maybe not feeling StarCraft, or just maybe not feeling the meta or something like that, or just simply put, he's burnt out, not practicing a lot. I know there's like still tons of potential behind it. So 3 Oracles now, looking to do a little bit more damage as Neeb does that on Twilight Council and Forge, so they're getting that Blink Stalker back and forth game. Maybe another game where Neeb also adds on a fast 4th. That remains to be seen. A little bit of an opening in the natural, a little bit, but not really. Oracle is now very injured. No, I don't think you go after a hatchery that's that healthy. Yeah, he skips it.
A lot of energy, but yeah, since I think Neeb wants to move out with the Stalkers, feels that, and actually maybe the Stalkers can just start working on that hatchery, right? Why use all the Oracle energy for that hatchery if the Stalkers can just run to the other side of the map? And the only thing that Scarlett can currently produce are Zerglings. Zerglings can be great, especially with +1, but they need the Queen backup. And the creep has not been quite connected to this base. That means Queens can't help out, and these Lynx can't fight the Stalkers because Pulsar Beam is too powerful.
The Queen's ever so close. They're going to try and help out. This could have been really nasty, 100%. This could have been a quick cancel and kind of no repercussions on Neeb's side, but Scarlett does hold on to the 4th, also now has a 5th on the way. Lair has finally started up again, too. Neeb should be okay against this little Ling run. Well, no, it goes right towards the 4th, actually. So at the 3rd, I think he would have been fine, but the 4th is so fresh. Yeah, it has to be canceled.
Neeb's oracles are probably going to find this hatchery on the right side as well. Scarlett, her economy has really not been great, though. I know that Lynx are cheap, and Scarlett is now also moving into +1 missile attacks, which is a bit surprising considering the fact that we have no Roach Warren and we have no Hydraliscan. Isn't that a bit wild?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. I can only assume she is going to be prepping to get to Hydras.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, well, I guess, no. It's going to delay that +2 melee, right? Which we do consider to be pretty feisty. Those Banelings, after all, and Ling still being a core component, and Banelings as well. So I am surprised to see it come down when it does.
Neeb has been a bit more defensive over the last minute. Maybe he was worried about something that wasn't quite there, but obviously cannot see everything. Scarlett is trying to get lucky with all of her Lings in the top right side. We'll maybe get a cancel on a cannon. Are we going to morph some Banelings on the left? Nope. Scarlett is going to try to run in. These Lings have +1. That adept is barely at the correct spot. And Neeb's probably going to have to warp in a couple of buildings, but even the buildings alone might not be good enough because there's a lot of surface area for the Lings to then wrap around. Now the Lings come back in the top side of the map. Scarlett is at least doing a really good job here in forcing Neeb to stay at home. And then maybe all these hatcheries can start kicking in, and she's obviously catching up economically.
A little bit of razzle-dazzle, even a very good last-second pull away from the stasis trap. And Scarlett, I mean, didn't get a whole lot from it, technically. Nothing actually went down. Everything was okay. But it just, there is, I think, of the most signs of life here with this back and forth running around with the Lings, moving on into what apparently is going to be massive Ling, Baneling, Roach, Ravager. It wasn't a Hydraliscan, actually. She's going all attack mode. So it did delay that +2 melee by probably like 40 seconds, 50 seconds since the lair finished and +1 missile was still on the way. But it is contributing to just a real mid-game attack army, man. Just go for it. And it's the first time this has happened in the series. So let's see if it does work out against Neeb.
I don't like it, especially with the gold in the bottom left side that Neeb is not quite aware of yet. This really does have some potential. It feels that one good fight with all the Banelings is all it really takes for Scarlett, and her creep in the center of the map is, as we know it, fantastic. But now Neeb does have an observer flying around, so it's going to be a bit easier for Neeb to push it back. Another stasis went off in the natural, but once more Scarlett was on top of it. Only 2 drones are getting stuck temporarily. Does seem that Neeb has a good read on it, right, with the extra cannons, and now heading into Storm.
I think the Oracle and the Natural, despite not getting any very good stasis traps, has scouted just like barely enough to kind of figure what's going on here. So like an actual delayed Roach run is kind of funny, but it was a bit. But then it was researching alongside the Baneling Nest. It wasn't a Hydraliscan or an Infestation Pit, which was shown in the last few series, as it made it very clear with that she was diving towards Lurkers. No, here it's a bit clear that she is going for that mid-game attack army. Might change eventually, of course, but first we have to have a couple of battles. Neeb is trying to actually kind of double expand. Yeah, technically, he's gonna have to cancel the one on the left side, though.
Yep, did find all the morphing Banelings in the top right, so that's obviously pretty big for Neeb. Doesn't have to worry about these Banelings crashing into the other base. One Archon is going to try to do its best here to buy some time, but will get fully surrounded, and now Banelings are going to try to roll in with these +2 melees not quite done yet. Scarlett has a lot of money, has a lot of hatcheries. No, that's the wrong way. Actually, these roaches trying to go in the wrong direction. But it is going to pull the units maybe a bit out of position again, and Scarlett should be able to get at least another cancel on that 5th base.
Oh, the Oracle and the Natural is getting so much damage done, actually. Scarlett was trying to micro, but it didn't work out. And yeah, also missed microed on the front lines, but still hoping that some portion of the army will find success. So far, not so good. Even the Natural of Neeb looks to be protected. Yeah, Neeb just kind of a slam dunk 20 seconds right there.
Did lose a Nexus, so I have the feeling that this one didn't get cancelled in the top side, because I think that's the first one that went down. War Prism is going to make its way into the main base, and even though there are a couple of Spore Crawlers and one Queen, that is not going to be good enough. Lings are showing up, and these are feisty Lings with +2, but they do not have Adrenal Glances. We don't have Hive Tech. The main army of Neeb is now also getting Adventurers on creep. Can the Banelings connect with High Templars? That would be so big for Scarlett. So far the answer is no, but there is more Zerg coming.
Oh my god, the right side, the right side. No, the Banelings, she tried to control them. She knew where she wanted them to go, but the Banelings were kind of refusing to do so. And now they're going to roll into a couple of Archons. This is going to be a cleanup on the side of Scarlett, but it was kind of a costly one, I suppose. And Neeb is now establishing the 5th base at the very least, has some Zealots in the main base causing a lot of trouble. Will have to be picked up, though. So we can all breathe and kind of reevaluate what is happening in this game. Neeb, certainly lower in supply, but hasn't really also been warping in, so that's part of the reason that is the case.
Yep, he's getting ready to transition into carriers once more. There is still a Prism. In the end, Neeb actually survived with 2 Stalkers on the right side. That did just fall now, but overall, if you look at the units lost resource tab, we can see that Scarlett has lost a few more resources. That's not necessarily the end of the world, because he's working with plenty of bases, but we do need to get ready for that transition that Neeb is currently making. Once more, there are carriers on the way. There are a couple of changelings chilling in front of the natural of Neeb. If these changelings would just move a little bit, they would see the cybernetics core, and that would obviously be a pretty big scout for Scarlett. And we need to get these spires done as War Prism flies into the main base, into 2 Queens and 2 Spore Crawlers. So Scarlett takes care of that, but she needs to get ready for carriers.
Exactly, and that has been a major problem in a lot of the games so far. So will it be the main problem once again? Neeb was a little delayed in that transition, choosing to warp in approximately like 14 High Templars. Those are quite a bit of gas, quite a bit. But now with the steady income on 5 bases, all the gas is taken, can afford to add on those 3 carriers. Hopefully also a bit faster adding on that 2nd upgrade. Yeah, that's for you, Robbie.
I love it. Alex knows how to please me.
I mean, instantly chronoing it as well. Definitely all sights set on kind of just buying time for that ultimate late game army. So these run buys, I mean, they want to do damage, but if they're kind of keeping Scarlett in check, or at least checking where Scarlett's army is, that also is useful for him.
I mean, Scarlett has a lot of minerals. Would be awesome if she could maybe throw up a couple of Spine Crawler spores in the bottom left side. As these Oracles are just going to fight the spores. Really smart by Neeb. Didn't initially kill it, but now these drones are forced to run away. Like, if Scarlett would have half as much gas as he has minerals, I'd be like, I believe in the Spires right now. I believe in getting a decent amount of Corruptus. But at this point, it seems to be that most of the gas have gone into Roaches and Banelings. And that's going to be good to kill probes. This is not going to be great in killing carriers.
Yeah, pretty bad at it, in fact. Maybe they can hit the heart of the High Templars, and that would be instantly just gone. Or the Storms hit the heart of the Banelings and the Roaches. My goodness. Everything got rained on.
Yep, and this is the first time that Scarlett sees the carriers as well. She is going to drop her Spire immediately. Try to get into the natural. Battery overcharge is going to keep the Banelings out. Few more Banelings with +2. Can they make it into the mineral line? It just seems like that is not happening either. As a couple of gates do get unpowered. Scarlett still has a lot of supply, but I am afraid this is not the right supply. Neeb's army looks absolutely invincible here. Isn't even using storms on the other side of the map. But I think Neeb can get ready for another upper bracket grand finals appearance, because Scarlett cannot stop this army.
No, she cannot. Roaches will never be able to shoot up no matter how many you stack on top of each other. Unfortunate non-feature of Legacy of the Void. GG. Neeb will take the 3-1 victory, and yes,